My name is Claudia. I am 32 years old and I thought I knew my husband better than anyone. 7 years of marriage, a beautiful home in the Denver suburbs, a life that looked perfect from the outside. But on Thanksgiving morning, when he handed me a cup of coffee, with that strange, bitter smell, something in my gut screamed danger. Before I tell you what I discovered that day, let me know where you are watching from. If you have ever trusted someone who betrayed you, hit subscribe. Because what happened next exposed a plot I never could have imagined. I need to take you back to the beginning so you understand just how blind I had been. My life in Denver was everything I had worked for. At 32, I was a real estate agent at Pinnacle Realty, one of the top firms in the city. I worked hard for that position, spending years building my client base, attending endless open houses, and sacrificing weekends to close deals. My annual income had reached about $80,000, mostly from commissions, and I was proud of every single dollar. My husband Derek and I had purchased our home 3 years earlier. It was a beautiful 2-story house in Highlands Ranch with 4 bedrooms, a spacious backyard, and the kind of kitchen I had always dreamed about. The mortgage payment was $2,800 a month, and here is something important. I was the one whose name was primarily on that mortgage. My credit score was higher than Derek's, so it made sense at the time. I never thought twice about it. Our house was my sanctuary. I had planted lavender bushes along the fence because the scent reminded me of my grandmother's garden. In the back corner, I grew cherry tomatoes every summer. Those small things brought me peace after long days of showing properties and negotiating contracts. But there was one shadow over my happiness. I could not have children. Polycystic ovary syndrome had made conception nearly impossible. Derek and I had tried IVF twice, and both times ended in heartbreak. The doctors were optimistic about trying again, but the emotional toll was devastating. Sometimes late at night, I would lie awake wondering if I was enough. If Derek secretly resented me for not being able to give him the family he wanted. I never shared those fears with anyone. I just pushed them down and focused on work on the house, on being a good wife. Derek was 34, 2 years older than me. We had met 8 years ago at a karaoke bar downtown. He was singing an off-key version of a classic rock song, and I could not help but laugh. He noticed me laughing, came over to my table, and said with a grin that if I thought I could do better, I should prove it. I sang something equally terrible, and by the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers. He worked as a project coordinator at a construction company. His salary was lower than mine, around $55,000 a year, but that never bothered me. We were a team, or so I believed. Derek was tall, about 6 feet 1 inch, with dark brown hair and green eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had a small scar on his chin from a bicycle accident when he was a kid. I used to trace that scar with my finger and tell him it gave him character. In the early years, Derek was everything I wanted in a husband. He was funny, attentive, and thoughtful. Every morning he made me coffee before I left for work. Every week he would slip little notes into my purse with messages like, "You are my favorite human," or "thinking of you." Those small gestures made me feel loved and appreciated. But looking back now, I can see the cracks that I chose to ignore. About 6 months before that Thanksgiving, Derek started going to the gym late at night. He said the 24-hour gym was less crowded after 10. I believed him. He also started texting more frequently after I went to bed, claiming it was work stuff. When I asked questions, he always had reasonable answers. I never pushed because after 7 years together, he had never given me a reason to doubt him. At least that is what I told myself. Our intimacy had decreased over the past year. I blamed it on stress. I was working 60-hour weeks during the busy season, and Derek had a demanding project at work. Couples go through dry spells, right? That is normal. That is what I kept telling myself. Now I need to tell you about Monica. She was Derek's older sister, 38 years old, and she lived alone in a condo about 15 minutes from our house. Monica worked as a receptionist at a high-end spa. Her salary was not impressive, but somehow she always wore designer clothes and carried expensive handbags. I noticed this inconsistency but never asked about it. It was not my business. Monica had never married. She dated occasionally, but claimed she was too independent for commitment. She was tall and slim, with dyed blonde hair that was always perfectly styled. Her nails were immaculate, always painted in trendy colors. When she spoke, her voice had this sweetness to it that never quite reached her eyes. On the surface, Monica and I got along fine. We exchanged pleasantries at family gatherings and occasionally texted about planning events for Eleanor Derrick's mother. But there was always something underneath our interactions. Monica had a talent for saying things that sounded like compliments, but left me feeling small. At last year's Christmas dinner, she looked at me across the table and said, "Claudia, you look so tired. Is work stressing you out in front of the entire family?" Another time she remarked, "I do not know how you manage without kids. I would be so bored." She knew about my fertility struggles. Everyone in the family did. That comment was not accidental. I never confronted her about these remarks. I did not want to create tension in the family. Derrick never defended me either, which I rationalized as him not noticing. He was probably just distracted. That is what I told myself over and over. Eleanor Derrick's mother was 63 and had been a widow for 5 years. Her husband passed away from a heart attack, and since then, she had lived alone in Pueblo, about 2 hours south of Denver. Eleanor was a kind woman who loved both of her children, but I noticed she tended to favor Monica. Maybe because Monica called her more often to complain about her life, while Derrick and I were usually too busy to visit. Eleanor did not know much about what was really happening in her children's lives. She saw what they wanted her to see, and I would soon learn that what Derrick and Monica were hiding was far worse than I could have imagined. That year, Derrick suggested we host Thanksgiving at our house. It would be easier for everyone, he said. Eleanor would not have to cook, Monica would not have to travel far, and we had the biggest space. I agreed even though I was exhausted from a brutal fall season of home sales. I spent the entire week before Thanksgiving preparing. I deep cleaned every room, bought groceries, and planned a menu that would impress everyone. The guest list included Eleanor Monica Derrick's Aunt Ruth and her husband, Bernard. Ruth was Eleanor's older sister, a woman in her late 60s who had opinions about everything and was not shy about sharing them. Bernard was her quiet husband, who mostly nodded along with whatever Ruth said. 3 weeks before the holiday, I decided to do something special. I ordered a cake from Cloud 9 Bakery in Fremont. It was a place I had admired for years, but never felt justified in splurging on. This time I wanted to celebrate. Not just Thanksgiving, but my own accomplishments. I had closed 12 deals that year, a personal record. I deserved something nice. The cake was 3 tiers with cream cheese frosting, white fondant, and delicate lavender flowers made from sugar. The edges were trimmed in silver, and my name was written in gold script at the base. $175. I paid for it with tip money I had saved from a side job at a coffee shop on weekends. When I placed the order, my hands trembled slightly as I handed over my card. It was the first truly extravagant thing I had bought for myself in years. The bakery owner, a woman named Aisha, smiled at me and said it was going to be beautiful. I believed her. As the day approached, I invited everyone and waited for responses. Aunt Ruth and Bernard confirmed immediately. Eleanor was coming, of course. But when I texted Monica, her response was lukewarm. "Probably cannot make it. Tyler has a basketball game." There was no Tyler in our family. I realized she must have meant some other commitment, but she did not bother to clarify. I felt a small sting of rejection, but did not push. Then 2 days before Thanksgiving, Monica called me. "Actually, I can come. My plans fell through. And you know I love a good dessert." She laughed when she said it, but something in her tone felt off. She did not ask about me, did not wish me a happy holiday. She just wanted to know what I was serving. Derek seemed pleased that Monica was coming. Maybe too pleased, but I brushed it off. They were siblings. Of course he wanted his sister there. I had no idea what they were actually planning. The night before Thanksgiving, I was in the kitchen until past midnight. The apple pie was cooling on the counter. The stuffing was prepped and refrigerated, and the turkey was brining in a large cooler in the garage. My feet ached. My back was stiff, and all I wanted was to crawl into bed. Derek had gone upstairs hours earlier, claiming he was exhausted and needed sleep before the big day. I did not think much of it at the time. He had been working on a stressful project or so, he said. When I finally finished and climbed the stairs, it was almost 1 a.m. The hallway was dark except for a sliver of light coming from under our bedroom door. Strange. Derek usually slept with all the lights off. I pushed the door open slowly, not wanting to wake him if he had fallen asleep with the lamp on. But Derek was not asleep. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me, hunched over his phone. The screen illuminated his face in the darkness, and I could hear a voice coming through the speaker. A woman's voice, low and intimate. Derek! He jumped so violently that the phone nearly flew out of his hands. In one swift motion, he jabbed at the screen and the voice cut off. "Who are you talking to?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. My heart was pounding. Just my sister. He did not look at me as he said it. "She is stressed about tomorrow, at 1 a.m. You know Monica. She is always dramatic." He set the phone face down on the nightstand and finally turned to face me. His expression was neutral, almost too controlled. "Come to bed, babe. Big day tomorrow." I wanted to ask more questions. Who calls their sister at 1 a.m. and whispers like that? But I was so tired. My body ached, my mind was foggy, and I told myself I was overreacting. Derek had never given me a reason to doubt him. 7 years of trust had to count for something. I changed into my pajamas and slid under the covers. Derek did not reach for me like he usually did. He turned onto his side, facing away from me, and within minutes his breathing slowed. I lay there in the darkness for another hour, staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones, but I did not have proof, and I did not have energy. So I closed my eyes and forced myself to sleep. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. The clock on my nightstand read 7:15. I had overslept. There was so much to do before guests arrived. I threw off the covers and rushed downstairs, expecting to find chaos. Instead, I found Derek standing in the kitchen, fully dressed, holding a mug of coffee. "Good morning, beautiful. I made you coffee." I stopped in the doorway, confused. Derek rarely woke up before me, and he almost never made coffee unless I asked him to. "Wow, you are up early. I wanted to help you today." He smiled, that familiar smile, the one that used to make my heart flutter. "It is going to be busy." For a moment, I felt guilty about my suspicions from the night before. Here he was being thoughtful, trying to make my day easier. Maybe I had been paranoid. Maybe the late-night phone call really was just Monica being dramatic. He walked over and handed me the mug. It was my favorite one, navy blue with a small chip on the handle that I had never bothered to replace. I wrapped my fingers around the warm ceramic and brought it to my nose. That was my habit. I always smelled my coffee before drinking it. The aroma was part of the experience, the ritual that started my day. But this time something was wrong. The smell was off. There was coffee, yes, but underneath it was something else. Something bitter and slightly metallic, almost chemical. It reminded me of the smell of crushed pills. "This smells different." "Did you change the beans?" "No, same beans." Derek's response came quickly, maybe too quickly. Maybe it is the creamer I use, the hazelnut one. I do not use hazelnut creamer, I use vanilla. Oh, my bad. I grabbed the wrong one. I looked down at the dark liquid in my mug. The surface was still reflecting the kitchen lights. Everything about this moment felt wrong. The early wake-up, the eagerness to serve me coffee, the strange smell. My instincts were screaming. But it was Thanksgiving. My family was coming. I did not want to start a fight over creamer. I will just make myself a new one. No, no, do not waste it. I will make you another one. The way he said it made my skin prickle. He was too insistent, too eager to take the mug back. It is fine, really. I need to check the turkey anyway. I set the mug down on the counter and walked toward the garage where the turkey was brining. As I left the kitchen, I could feel Derek's eyes on my back. When I glanced over my shoulder, his expression was unreadable. I did not drink that coffee. The morning passed in a blur of cooking and cleaning. By 11, the house smelled amazing. Turkey in the oven, stuffing warming on the stove, pies cooling on the dining room table. I had changed into a nice burgundy dress and touched up my makeup. Everything was perfect. The doorbell rang at exactly 11. Eleanor stood on the porch holding a pumpkin pie and beaming. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart." I hugged her and helped her inside, taking her coat and setting her pie with the others. Eleanor settled into the living room, and I brought her a glass of sparkling cider. At 11:30, the doorbell rang again. I knew it was Monica before I even opened the door. I could smell her perfume through the wood. I opened the door, and there she was. Monica in a fitted red dress that hugged every curve, 4-inch heels, full makeup that would have been appropriate for a nightclub, not a family dinner. She looked like she was attending a premiere, not eating turkey with relatives. "Claudia," she air-kissed both my cheeks. "Happy Turkey Day." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. And then she did something that made my stomach clench. She walked straight to Derek. He was coming down the stairs, and Monica opened her arms wide. They embraced, and it lasted too long, too tight. When they finally separated, Monica kept her hand on his arm for an extra beat. I watched this from the entryway, frozen. They were siblings. Siblings hug. But something about the way they looked at each other made me feel like an outsider in my own home. Monica turned to me with that sugary smile. "Claudia, you look exhausted. Did you sleep at all?" "I was up late cooking." "Oh, I could never. I do not know how you do it all." The way she said it made it sound like pity rather than admiration. Derek cleared his throat. "Mon, you want coffee? I just made a fresh pot." "Yes, please, you know how I like it." And there it was, the detail that pierced through my denial like a knife. Derek knew exactly how Monica liked her coffee, but he could not remember that I used vanilla creamer instead of hazelnut. I watched him pour her a cup, add the precise amount of cream and sugar, and stir it 3 times. He handed it to her with a smile, and she took it with a familiarity that made my chest tight. Then they moved to the corner of the kitchen, heads bent together, whispering. From the living room I could see them, but not hear them. They kept glancing toward me, then away. Eleanor appeared at my side. "Claudia, dear, do you need help with anything?" I forced a smile. "No, I have got it. Just relax." But I did not have anything. I was losing my grip on everything I thought I knew. By 1 in the afternoon, everyone had arrived. Aunt Ruth swept in with a casserole nobody asked for and opinions about everything from the weather to my choice of tablecloth. Bernard followed behind her, nodding silently and carrying her purse like a dutiful servant. We gathered around the dining room table I had set the night before. My best china cloth napkins, a centerpiece of fall flowers I had arranged myself. It should have been a beautiful moment. Instead, I felt like I was performing in a play where everyone else knew the script, except me. The meal started well enough. Everyone complimented the food. Eleanor gushed about the turkey. Ruth admitted somewhat grudgingly that the stuffing was acceptable. Even Bernard mumbled something positive through a mouthful of mashed potatoes, but I could not enjoy any of it. Derek and Monica sat across from each other, and throughout the entire meal they kept exchanging glances. Brief, almost invisible, unless you were watching. Every time Monica laughed, Derek smiled. Every time Monica checked her watch, Derek's eyes followed. They were communicating without words, and I was not part of the conversation. Ruth noticed me staring at my plate. "Claudia, you have barely eaten. Are you feeling all right?" "Just tired." I smiled weakly. "Busy week." Monica took a sip of her wine. "She should take better care of herself. Running around showing houses all day cannot be healthy." The concern in her voice was as fake as her eyelash extensions. I wanted to snap back at her to say something sharp. But what could I say? That I suspected my husband and his sister of something I could not even name. So I stayed silent and pushed food around my plate while my family chatted and laughed and pretended everything was fine. After the meal, everyone migrated to the living room for football and digestion. I started clearing the table, grateful for something to do with my hands. Derek appeared beside me. "Babe, let me clean up." "You have done enough." I almost dropped the plate I was holding. In 7 years of marriage, Derek had offered to clean up exactly 0 times after a holiday meal. "Are you sure positive? Go rest. I will bring you coffee." There it was again, coffee. He was obsessed with getting me to drink coffee today. I went to the living room and sat down next to Eleanor on the sofa. The television was showing a football game that nobody was really watching. Ruth was telling a long story about her neighbor's dog. Bernard was half asleep in the armchair. 10 minutes later, Derek emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of coffee mugs. He distributed them efficiently. One for Eleanor, one for Ruth, one for Bernard, one for Monica. And then he crossed the room and handed me the navy blue mug. My mug. The same one from this morning. I took it automatically, muscle memory overriding caution. But as soon as the ceramic touched my palm, I brought it to my nose. The smell hit me immediately. That same bitter, metallic undertone. Chemical. Wrong. My heart started racing. This was not paranoia. This was real. Something was in this coffee. "You okay?" Derek was watching me with an expression I could not read. "Yeah, just this smells weird again. It is the same coffee, babe." "Maybe you are getting a cold," Monica chimed in from across the room. "Claudia is always so picky about coffee." Ruth shrugged. "I think it smells fine." I looked down at my mug, then across at Monica. She was holding a plain white mug standard issue from our kitchen cabinet. Not special. Not targeted. A thought struck me like lightning. A crazy, impulsive, possibly paranoid thought. If there was something in my coffee, did Monica know about it? And if she did not know, what would happen if she drank it instead? Before I could talk myself out of it, I stood up. "I need a napkin." I walked toward the dining room, passing right by where Monica sat on the love seat. As I moved past her, I deliberately caught my foot on the edge of the coffee table. I stumbled just slightly, and a splash of coffee escaped my mug and landed on the carpet. "Oh no, I am so clumsy." Eleanor looked up with concern. "Are you okay, dear? I am fine. Let me get something to clean this." In the chaos of the moment, with everyone's attention on the spilled coffee, I did it. My hand moved almost on its own. I reached down, picked up Monica's white mug, and set my navy blue one in its place. Then I grabbed both, as if I was just moving things out of the way, and when I set them back down, they had switched positions. Nobody noticed. Monica was still looking at the carpet stain. Derek was in the kitchen getting paper towels. Ruth was complaining about my clumsiness. I grabbed a napkin from the dining table and returned to dab at the carpet. When I sat back down, I was holding the white mug. Monica's mug. The safe one. I took a sip. It tasted normal. Rich, warm, slightly sweet. just coffee. Nothing strange at all. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to appear calm. I watched Monica reach for her mug. The navy blue one. My mug. The one Derek had specifically prepared for me. She brought it to her lips and drank deeply. She did not smell it first. She just drank. I waited, heart pounding, breath held. 10 minutes passed. Monica was chatting with Ruth about some spa treatment. Everything seemed normal. 15 minutes. Monica laughed at something Bernard mumbled. 20 minutes. Then it started. Monica stopped mid-sentence. Her hand went to her forehead. I feel weird. Ruth raised an eyebrow. What do you mean my head is spinning? Monica blinked rapidly. And I feel really sleepy. Derek's head snapped toward his sister. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. Monica, are you okay? I do not know. Everything is fuzzy. Eleanor leaned forward. Maybe you drank too much wine at dinner. I only had one glass. Monica tried to stand but swayed dangerously. Derek lunged forward to catch her. Whoa, careful! Monica leaned against him, her eyes struggling to focus. Derek, I feel like I am going to pass out. Let me get you some water. He half carried her toward the kitchen, past where I sat frozen on the sofa. As they passed me, I heard Derek whisper something to Monica. His voice was low, barely audible, but I caught every word. This was not supposed to happen to you. My blood turned to ice. This was not supposed to happen to you. That meant it was supposed to happen to someone else. It was supposed to happen to me. I stood up and followed them to the kitchen. They did not notice me at first. Derek was helping Monica drink water from a glass, his hands trembling. Monica was slumped against the counter, barely conscious. I stood in the doorway and said his name. Derek. He spun around, and when he saw me standing there, something in his face cracked. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. What did you put in my coffee? What nothing? What are you talking about? Do not lie to me. I stepped into the kitchen, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside my chest. I switched the cups. You what? The coffee you made for me, I gave it to Monica. And now, look at her. Derek's face went from white to gray. He looked at Monica, then at me, then at Monica again. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Claudia, I can explain, then explain. Right now. He said nothing. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Explain. My shout echoed through the house. Within seconds, everyone was crowding into the kitchen doorway. Eleanor, Ruth, Bernard, all staring at the scene before them. What is going on? Eleanor's voice was high with panic. Why is Claudia yelling? Ruth demanded. I turned to face them, my hand pointing at Derek. Ask your son what he put in my coffee. Eleanor looked bewildered. Derek, what is she talking about? Derek's composure finally shattered. Mom, it is a misunderstanding. Is it? I advanced toward him. Then why is Monica almost unconscious after drinking the coffee meant for me? Everyone turned to look at Monica. She was sitting on the kitchen floor now, her back against the cabinets, her eyes barely open. Her designer dress was wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled. She looked like a broken doll. Oh my God. Eleanor pushed past me and knelt beside her daughter. Monica, can you hear me? Ruth was already pulling out her phone. I am calling 911. I kept my eyes locked on Derek. What was in it? A sedative, sleeping pills, what? And then he broke. Tears spilled down his cheeks and his shoulders sagged like a puppet with cut strings. I am sorry. His voice was barely a whisper. I am so sorry. Sorry for what? He took a shuddering breath. We needed you out of the way, just for a few hours. Out of the way. For what? Derek looked at Monica, then at his mother, then at the floor, anywhere but at me. The house. We needed access to the house documents. What documents? He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there was not love or regret. It was desperation. The equity. You have almost $200,000 in equity on this house. We were going to forge your signature on a HELOC application. The words hit me like physical blows. A home equity line of credit. They were going to steal my home equity while I lay unconscious upstairs. You were going to steal from me. Not steal, his voice cracked. Just borrow. I was going to pay it back. Borrow $200,000 without my knowledge. That is theft. Ruth had put her phone on speaker. The 911 operator was asking questions, but Ruth was too stunned to answer properly. Eleanor was crying, stroking Monica's hair. Bernard stood in the doorway, mouth hanging open. Derek, how could you? Ruth finally found her voice. Derek seemed to shrink before my eyes. I am in debt. Okay, I owe people money. Bad people. I needed to pay them back or they were going to hurt me. Eleanor looked up from Monica. What kind of people, Derek? What have you done gambling? The word fell from his lips like a confession at the gallows. I owe loan sharks over $150,000. I felt the room tilt. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of sharing a bed, sharing meals, sharing a life. And I had no idea my husband was a gambling addict who owed 6 figures to criminals. Monica was going to help me file the HELOC while you were asleep. Derek continued, the truth pouring out of him now like water from a broken dam. We were going to do it online, then wake you up before anyone suspected. And Monica. The question burned in my throat. What does she get out of this? Derek went silent. What does she get? Derek. The kitchen felt smaller than ever. Everyone was staring at Derek, waiting for an answer that would make sense of this nightmare. She gets me. His voice was so quiet I almost missed it. What, Monica and I? He swallowed hard. We have been together. For 2 years the world stopped spinning. I could hear Eleanor gasp, could see Ruth's hand fly to her mouth, could feel the floor shifting beneath my feet. But none of it seemed real. What? Eleanor's scream cut through the fog. She is your sister. She is not my biological sister, Mom. Derek's voice was flat, now emotionless. You adopted her when she was 5. That does not make it okay. I raised her as your sister. I found my voice somehow. 2 years. You have been sleeping with her for 2 years. I am sorry. I did not mean for it to happen. Did not mean for it to happen. I was screaming now, my throat raw. You drugged me. You were going to steal my house. And you have been cheating with Monica for 2 years. Monica stirred on the floor, her eyes fluttering open. Derek, she mumbled. What is happening? Derek knelt beside her. Monica, I am sorry. The plan failed. I crouched down to Monica's level. Did you know about the drugs? She managed a weak nod. We researched safe dosage, just to make you sleep. Not hurt you, not hurt me. You were going to steal everything I have. The sound of sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the kitchen window. This is disgusting. Ruth's voice was ice. Both of you. Bernard, who had not spoken more than 10 words all day, finally opened his mouth. I always knew something was off about those two. The paramedics arrived first, rushing in with a stretcher. They took one look at Monica and started asking questions. What did she ingest? How much? When Derek answered mechanically. Sleeping pills. 3 tablets crushed in coffee. The paramedic looked grim. That is a dangerous dose. She needs to go to the hospital. As they loaded Monica onto the stretcher, two police officers appeared in the doorway. Officer Reyes and Officer Thompson, according to their badges. We received a report of possible poisoning. Officer Reyes surveyed the room. Can someone explain what happened? I stepped forward. My husband drugged my coffee. He admitted it in front of everyone here. Derek tried one last time. I did not mean to hurt her. It was just sleeping pills. Officer Thompson shook his head. Sir, administering drugs to someone without their knowledge is a felony. What? No, I was just... You will need to come with us. Officer Reyes reached for his handcuffs. Derek turned to me, his eyes wild with desperation. Claudia, please, tell them it was a mistake. I looked at this man I had married, this man I had loved, this man I had trusted with my heart and my home and my future. And I said the only word that mattered. No. Claudia, please, I love you. You do not drug people you love. My voice was steady now, cold and clear. You do not steal from people you love. You do not cheat on people you love. The officers cuffed Derek and led him toward the door. He kept looking back at me, kept calling my name, but I did not follow. I stood in the kitchen of my beautiful house and watched my husband be taken away in handcuffs. Eleanor was sobbing. Ruth was comforting her. Bernard was still standing in the doorway, shaking his head. I cannot believe this. Eleanor wept. My own children. I walked to the window and watched the police car pull away from my house. The ambulance followed with Monica inside. The red and blue lights faded into the night. I felt empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only a shell. But underneath the emptiness, there was something else, something that felt like freedom. Everyone left by 8 that evening. Eleanor went to a nearby hotel. She could not bear to drive 2 hours back to Pueblo in her condition. Ruth and Bernard offered to stay with her. They hugged me before they left, Ruth squeezing my hands and saying she was sorry over and over. Then I was alone. The house felt enormous. Every room echoed with memories that now felt like lies. I walked through slowly, touching things Derek and I had chosen together. The couch where we had watched countless movies, the dining table where we had hosted dinners with friends, the bed where we had slept side by side for 7 years. I ended up sitting on the bedroom floor, my back against the wall, staring at nothing. The tears came then. Not pretty, delicate tears, but ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. I cried for the future I had imagined. I cried for the woman who had been so blind, so trusting, so foolish. When the tears finally stopped, I was exhausted. But sleep would not come. My mind kept replaying everything. The phone call at 1 a.m, the strange smell of the coffee, the way Derek and Monica had looked at each other, the whispered words, "This was not supposed to happen to you." I reached for my laptop and opened it. The screen glowed in the darkness of the bedroom. I started searching. Divorce lawyer Denver. How to protect assets during divorce. Signs of gambling addiction spouse. I read article after article learning about my rights, about the legal process, about what I could do to protect myself. By 3 a.m, I had a plan. I was not going to be a victim. I was going to fight. The next morning was Black Friday. While the rest of America was shopping for deals, I was making phone calls that would change my life. My first call was to a divorce lawyer named Diane Kowalski. Her office was technically closed for the holiday, but she answered her emergency line. When I explained my situation, she agreed to take my case immediately. File a restraining order first thing Monday, she advised. Freeze all joint accounts. Change the locks on your house. Do not let him back in under any circumstances. I wrote everything down, my hand steady, despite the chaos in my head. My second call was to my bank. I explained that I needed to freeze my joint savings account with my husband. The amount was about $12,000. The banker was sympathetic and processed my request within the hour. I also opened a new account in my name only and arranged for my paychecks to be deposited there going forward. My third call was to the mortgage company. I reported the situation as potential fraud and requested that they flag our account. Any HELOC applications would need to be verified in person with multiple forms of identification. They assured me no one could access my equity without my explicit consent. My fourth call was to the police station. I wanted to know what was happening with Derek. The officer who answered told me that Derek was being held on charges of attempted poisoning and conspiracy to commit fraud. He could potentially be released on bail, but given the severity of the charges, bail was set high. Monica, I learned, had been released from the hospital. She was facing charges as an accomplice. The restraining order I would file on Monday would prevent both of them from contacting me. With each call, I felt stronger. Each action was a step toward taking back control of my life. I was not the naive woman who had made coffee for her ungrateful husband. I was someone new, someone who would not be fooled again. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom and watched Derek in an orange jumpsuit. His hair was greasy, his face was pale, and he looked 10 years older than he had on Thanksgiving morning. The charges were read aloud. Attempted poisoning, a felony. Conspiracy to commit fraud, another felony. Derek pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. His own mother and aunt had witnessed his confession. The hospital had documented the sedatives in Monica's system. The paper trail of his gambling debts painted a picture of a desperate man with everything to lose. Monica sat in a different section of the courtroom. She was also facing charges, conspiracy to commit fraud, and accessory to poisoning. She would not look at me or at Derek. She stared straight ahead, her face carefully blank. Derek's lawyer requested reduced bail, arguing that Derek was not a flight risk. The prosecutor countered that Derek owed money to dangerous people and had every reason to disappear. The judge sided with the prosecution. Bail was set at $100,000. Derek did not have that kind of money. He would remain in jail until his trial. As the officers led him away, Derek turned and looked at me. His eyes were red, pleading. I held his gaze for a long moment, then I looked away. Monica's bail was set at $50,000. Eleanor paid it for her adopted daughter, though I could see the pain it cost her. When Monica walked out of the courthouse, she did not thank her mother. She just got into a car and drove away. The divorce proceedings moved quickly after that. With Derek facing criminal charges, he had no resources to fight me. He could not afford a lawyer, so he had to represent himself in the civil case. Diane Kowalski was brilliant. She documented everything: the gambling debts Derek had hidden from me, the affair with Monica, the attempted fraud. She argued that I should retain full ownership of the house since I was the primary holder on the mortgage, and Derek had attempted to use it for illegal purposes. The judge agreed. The house was mine. The savings account was mine. The gambling debts were solely Derek's responsibility, since he had incurred them without my knowledge during our marriage. 3 months after Thanksgiving, my divorce was final. I signed the papers in Diane's office, and when I walked out into the spring sunshine, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. I went to the courthouse and legally changed my name back to my maiden name, Claudia Harding, the woman I had been before I ever met Derek. Derek's criminal trial concluded 2 months later. He pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a lighter sentence. The judge gave him 18 months in prison. It was less than I thought he deserved, but it was something. Monica received 2 years of probation and was ordered to pay me $5,000 in restitution for legal fees. She moved to Arizona shortly after cutting ties with both Derek and Eleanor. No one knew what she was doing there. No one really cared. 6 months after Thanksgiving, I sold the house in Highlands Ranch. I could not stay there. Every room held memories I wanted to forget. The lavender bushes I had planted seemed to mock me. The kitchen where Derek had drugged my coffee made me feel sick every time I walked through it. The sale brought in $450,000. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, I was left with $210,000, more money than I had ever had in my life. I bought a condo in Cherry Creek, 2 bedrooms, a beautiful view close to downtown. I decorated it exactly the way I wanted. Bright colors, modern furniture, plants in every corner. No one else had input. No one else had to approve. My career flourished. Without the distraction of a troubled marriage, I threw myself into work. I closed more deals than ever before. My boss noticed and promoted me to senior agent. My projected income for the year was $120,000. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Amira Hassan. She helped me process the trauma, helped me understand that what happened was not my fault. I had trusted someone who did not deserve my trust. That was not a character flaw. That was being human. Through therapy, I learned to trust myself again. My instincts had saved me that Thanksgiving morning. The strange smell, the decision to switch cups, those were not accidents. My subconscious knew something was wrong, even when my conscious mind refused to accept it. I also made new friends. I joined a hiking group and met a woman named Natalie, who had been through her own difficult divorce. We bonded over shared experiences and became close. She understood what it was like to rebuild your life from the ashes of betrayal. Eleanor and I stayed in touch loosely. She called me every few months to apologize again, to check on me, to share news about Derek. I forgave her because she was not responsible for what her children had done. She was just a mother who had raised 2 people who turned out to be capable of terrible things. 1 year after Thanksgiving, I hosted my own celebration. Not a traditional turkey dinner, but a gathering of the people who had helped me survive the worst year of my life. Natalie brought wine. Dr. Amira brought flowers. A few colleagues from work brought dessert. I made lasagna instead of turkey. My mother's recipe, something I had not cooked in years. It felt right to reclaim that dish, to fill my new home with the smell of something good. We gathered around my small dining table, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. Genuinely. Not the manufactured happiness of trying to maintain a perfect image. Real joy. Claudia, this lasagna is incredible. Natalie raised her glass. Thanks. It is my mom's recipe. I have not made it in years. Dr. Amira looked at me with gentle eyes. How are you feeling today? I know this date has meaning. I took a moment to really consider the question. Honestly, I feel grateful. If that coffee had not smelled weird, I might never have known. Natalie nodded solemnly. Your gut saved your life. It did. And I will never ignore it again. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat by my window and looked out at the city lights. Denver sparkled below me, full of people living their own complicated lives, fighting their own battles. I thought about Derek. He was out of prison now, released early for good behavior. He was living in a halfway house, working at a warehouse, slowly paying off his gambling debts. We had not spoken since the divorce. The restraining order was technically expired, but neither of us had any desire to make contact. I thought about Monica. She was somewhere in Arizona, living a life I knew nothing about. Eleanor mentioned once that Monica had stopped returning her calls. Another relationship destroyed by the choices she made. I thought about myself. The woman I had been a year ago, blind and trusting, and so desperate to believe in her perfect marriage that she ignored every warning sign. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had learned the hardest lessons about love and trust and survival. The experience taught me things I never wanted to learn, that the people closest to you can be the ones who hurt you most. That love can be used as a weapon, that a beautiful life can hide ugly secrets. But it also taught me that I was stronger than I knew, that I could survive betrayal and come out the other side, that I could trust my instincts even when the truth was terrifying. I learned that setting boundaries is not cruel, it is necessary, that protecting yourself is not selfish, it is survival, that walking away from someone who hurts you is not weakness, it is the bravest thing you can do. People sometimes ask me if I miss being married. Honestly, I miss the idea of it, the partnership, the companionship, the sense of building a life with someone. But I do not miss Derek. I do not miss living with someone who saw me as a resource to exploit, rather than a person to love. That strange smell in my coffee saved my life. Not just physically, but emotionally, financially, spiritually. It forced me to see what I had been ignoring for years. It ripped away the comfortable lies and exposed the brutal truth. If you are watching this and something in your relationship feels off, trust that feeling. Your body knows before your mind accepts it. That weird sensation in your stomach, that voice in the back of your head whispering something is wrong. Listen to it. Listen. Do not dismiss it as paranoia. Do not rationalize it away. Listen. I thought swapping those mugs was impulsive. Looking back, it was the smartest thing I have ever done. Because sometimes the truth does not reveal itself gently. Sometimes it explodes in front of everyone. And when it does, you have two choices: crumble or rise. I chose to rise. And if you are facing your own moment of truth, I hope you do the same. Trust your gut. Protect yourself. Take action. You are stronger than you think. And remember, never drink coffee that smells wrong. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a gut feeling that saved you from a bad situation? Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be hiding terrible secrets? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experiences might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these videos. And if you are not already subscribed, join our community by clicking subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might be changed by knowing they are not alone. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this journey with me. I wish you clarity, strength, and the courage to always trust yourself. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.